Good morning, guys. Welcome back to the channel. This video, I'm gonna attempt to get this thing fired up. Okay, so this is an ST170 engine that I bought for my car. I bought it just before COVID, and I was pretty lucky because I was able to hear go up to Sheffield where the guy was, hear the engine running, and it started from cold. And it sounded great, really good. Sounded, obviously a decent engine, and the guy sort of took it out for me. We got it back here, stripped it down, and sort of changed the cam belt, front and rear seals, crank seals. Put the water rail on. Obviously painted the cam cover and stuff like that. Done the modification for the other side to take an AN10 fitting. Yeah, painted it up a bit and stuff like that. Put the RX8 adapter plate on and the clutch and the flywheel, and it sort of just stood there for the last 3 years or so, not really doing anything, just turned over a couple of times. So what we're going to look to do is get this fired up. Going to get it fired up on bike carbs, running an ME100. So it's the Gen 1 ME100. So I think there's a new one out, but practically the same thing. Should be fairly straightforward to set up. There is a base map, and we're just going to get it running for a couple of minutes. And one of the things that I'm going to try and do is also I'm going to try and get the rev counter to work on a set of Mk1 clocks. So it'd be good to combine the two of those together. And sometimes, although I've done videos in the past about sort of how that sort of works, if you see it in the flesh, and then it probably sinks in as to what I was saying before. I've had a few inquiries, regarding it, and sort of a little bit further explanation, and that's absolutely fine. But yeah, I'm going to try and get that done for you, so fingers crossed. Okay, so the next video, which will follow on this, will be the part of this video, but I'll be shooting it at work, is me sort of doing the wiring to try and get the thing fired up, and sort of going through an explanation of that. So you'll see that in a couple of seconds or so. So you won't have to wait too long. All right. So before I do go on to the next part, I'd like to say thank you to all my subscribers. Thank you for sticking with me. There has been a long time since I've put something out. Life has got in the way a little. I will be starting a new job in January, and that's 3 months of training. So yeah, there probably won't be too many videos coming out in the next 3 months, but stick with me, and yeah, we're gonna sort of fire this channel up, get some proper content on there, and get this car done. And obviously that main aim is to have it driving under its own steam, in a reasonable condition. But anyway, that's a long time away. But yeah, thank you for sticking with me. I really do appreciate it. So yeah, on to the next video. Okay guys, next part of the video, I did say I was going to do it at work. So I'm at work, and it's looking quite quiet, so we can sort of crack on with this. Okay, so said we'd get the engine fired up. So yeah, this is sort of the circuit that we're going to be sort of working with. Okay, so what I've done first of all is I've bought one of these push button start setups. Very easy to sort of get up and running. Okay, comes with a relay for the starter motor, and yeah, bit of wiring and crimping, and it looks like it's gonna work. Okay, so first of all, then, first things first is you've got your battery with a main, your main power coming in. Okay, fused, so 20 amp fuse, because the main switch which comes off this is 20 amps. Okay, so power comes in here, and then power, when you flick the switch, power comes from here to here. Okay, and once you get it here, you need to get it over to your push button start. Okay, now this push button start, when you actually look at it, it comes in two parts or two sides. Okay, one side is literally just it needs a plus and a minus to light it up so it illuminates. Okay, and we do that by jumping basically the ground from here over to this side. Okay, and then we've got power here from here, and it's literally because I just couldn't do it from here, but it works absolutely fine. Okay, and then the main part which will activate the starter motor, okay, is this side, and you can see it's numbered 3 and 4. Okay, so yeah, power comes in from this side. You've got obviously an output wire here, and basically when you push the two together, they connect, and then that would start your engine, because it would go to your starter motor. Okay, also as well, I've got 3 other switches, which is accessory 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so to get power to these is literally just a jumper setup. So powers come from this side, powers come from here to here, and then jumped it across. Okay, so all of them have got power. When you flick the switch up, then you've got load. These ones would go out to wherever it requires to be. Okay, whether it's going to be a relay, or it's going to be directly wired. Okay, so in this instance, we're going to need to use these. What I'm going to need to do is, one of them will be for the ECU. Okay, so we're going to have and that's going to have a relay in place. Okay, so just to look after the circuit and make sure that everything's okay. The second one is going to be a fuel pump. Now, we're using bike carbs to fire this vehicle up, and a bike carb may sort of run just 1 or 2 amps. That's not really the point. The issue is that fuel pumps, I believe, should be wired up with a relay. And even if I was to go to fuel injection in the future, which I will do, everything's in place for that to happen. Okay, and then in this instance, I'm also going to have the original wiring loom on one of these accessories, and that is so we can get those clocks up and running. In terms of, I'm not really fussed about the ancillary stuff like fuel, temp, speedo. We've done all those before. What I want to do is show the rev counter working. Okay, so there's a bit of wiring to do on that, but nothing too taxing. I can't see too many issues with that. But I'm going to need all 3 of those replicating the ignition barrel. Okay, so if we were doing this in the car, in a Mark 1, using a Mark 1 loom, okay, your main power lead that you've got coming in here is this one. So this is the connector for your ignition barrel, and it's that red wire that we've got there. Okay, and if you follow it through the loom, if I do a continuity test, it basically comes out here. It would be fused there, so exactly the same as having an inline fuse there, and then it would go into the engine loom. Okay, and it goes to this wire here. Now this would go originally, I think, would go on the starter solenoid. The other side, there would be a wire from the solenoid to the battery, but basically that's your main power wire, right? Okay, and it also comes up to this regulator as well. Okay, so this is long before sort of your conventional alternators that we use now. So yeah, it comes to this terminal as well. So I'm going to run another video where I remove this and I'll sort of explain how I do it. Okay. Been thinking about it for a while, thinking of what I need to do, and yeah, we'll remove the necessary wires. Some will need to be extended, some will need to be added, and at the same time I can rewrap this in some new grey tape. Okay, so it's looking as good as the loom that's in the compartments in the main compartment. Okay, so sort of going back to this wiring setup, output on when we use the starter in this situation, we've got a relay. Okay, so output goes to the relay will click, and then it will bring the starter motor into question. Okay, so wires on the on here, so you've got pin 86, which is this black wire, that's ground. Okay, so in this case we've got to put that to the battery, negative side of the battery. Your pin 86, which is the blue wire, that is the output wire to the that's the exciter wire to the solenoid of the starter motor. Okay, and if we were looking at that on a Mk1 Escort, that's this wire. Okay, that black wire is basically that black wire here. Okay, and your ignition barrel, and your ignition barrel's actually got 4 wires on. The actual connector to the physical barrel has another connector which has no wire connected to it, which is really weird, but it's actually a yellow wire, and that's for an accessory. So if you were having a radio or something like that, when you click to position 1, you'd be able to put your radio on, or whatever you wanted to connect to that. But ultimately that's the exciter wire, which replicates this blue wire here. Okay, the white wire is a positive, but they've just jumped it to the red. Okay, and yeah, that's sort of the relay in its sort of basic form, and yeah, that's in place to sort of take the load away from the switch. Okay, and this is something that I'm going to be doing with the horn, the headlights, what else? The heater and the wipers. That's something that I'm going to be doing where we're going to have relays in place. So basically we're taking the load away from the switch. The switch is just a trigger, and the relays are doing the work. And that's something that Fords, that's what I personally believe Escorts suffer from that. Okay, and that's why sometimes you have wiring problems. So you know, that's sort of the way that I'm looking to do it. So yeah, this replicates your ignition barrel. Okay, you know, works in a very similar way. Not exactly the same, but very similar. The principles are exactly the same. So yeah, starter motor. Starter motor is a LRS 707. If you are looking for one of these, and what I was told when I bought this was to look for a Mark III Granada 2-litre I starter motor. Okay, there seems to be loads of LRS 707s, and I always thought that they were all the same, but I was told that this one has a slightly smaller housing. I don't know if that's true. That's what I was told, and I've got no reason to disbelieve it. So yeah, that's what you know, if you want one of these and you're doing a Zetec in an Escort and you're using an RX8 box, I don't know if it's the same for a Type 9. I imagine it would be. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't. That's the starter motor to go for, or the equivalent. Okay, so this is the wiring setup that we're going to use. As I say, I'm just testing the starter operation now, and then what we will do is sort of add in the ECU stuff the fuel pump, and the Escort wiring loom, which is that mess over there, but it does work. You know, we've had those clocks up and running on that before, and we're going to need that to try and get that rev counter working, and show that. Okay, so yeah, so if we get this sort of fired up, let's have a look. Yeah, so it comes with a nice start, a nice illumination there, and you know, it's you know, it looks a bit, doesn't it? It looks a bit like I'm starting a fighter jet or something, you know, a bit of Top Gun and Tom Cruise. But yeah, we're literally starting a yeah, a starter motor for a Zetec engine. So yeah, that's where that's where it kind of ends. So yeah, let's give this a go and let's see if we can if this works and it's all looking good. Yeah, that looks good to me. All right, so there we go. So that's the starter motor setup. Okay. So yeah, we'll get the next part of this video then will be getting those accessories put on there, adding in the relays and stuff. There's a bit of work, tiny bit of work to do on the loom for the ECU. Okay, so we can incorporate the clocks and the rev counter. And then obviously there's the fuel pump and stuff like that. So that'll be the next video. You won't have to wait too long for that. That'll be I'll probably do that tomorrow, but that will be in this video, so you'll see that shortly. Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Another video with regards to getting the ST170 up and running. So next job is looking at these throttle bodies, carbs, bike carbs. Okay, so these are ZX9 are 40mm carbs. Okay, being used on Zetec and ST170s to death. And yeah, you can get good good performance and results if you know what you're doing with them. Okay, some people slate them, and it's you know, bike carbs should stay on bikes, but they don't really know their history that well, and that's something that's been done for donkey's years, long before you know, people sort of, or the average person worked out that you can use bike carbs on things like Zetec and stuff like that. So anyway, but with regards to this, one of the things that we're looking at here is this TPS sensor, okay, which is throttle position sensor. Now, when you look at a ME100, for example, which is any ignition only ECU, primarily what it's looking for is when they sort of doing the software, or the, you know, for an ECU, one of the main things that it's going to be looking at is the crank position sensor. Okay, all the other sensors really are not important. They're very much secondary. O2 sensors, not interested in that. Water temperature, oil temperature, just none of that stuff really matters. It's all going to be about can the ECU work out where the position of the engine is in, first of all, and on what cylinder. And once it knows that, it will then tell the coil to fire at specific intervals. So in the case of wasted spark, it's going to be 1 and 4, 2 and 3, 1 and 4, 2 and 3, and it'll continue to do that, so you get a spark on both cylinders at the correct times. Okay, with the throttle position sensor, which is going to be secondary, and we don't really need it, but what I will say is that if it knows where the throttle position is, okay, it can use that as another point of reference to get the ignition right. And the more variables, the more inputs it's got, okay, the better it can make a decision on how that ignition should look, okay. So it's another dimension to it, if you want to put it that way, okay. So with throttle position sensor, typically they're normally 3 wires. Some will have 4, okay, and that will normally be for some reason 2 ground wires, okay. But one thing that is pretty much 100% is that regardless of the colors of the throttle position sensor, like this one, the black wire is normally always ground. Okay, I've never seen it in all the years of me messing with cars and stuff like that. I've never seen that that change. Okay, so I'm going to make an assumption that that is the black wire, which is the one at the top here, and is the top pin here, is ground. Now the other 2 wires, one will be 5 volts. Okay, so plus 5 volts supplied by the ECU. Okay, so that will switch, in effect, you've got a ground and you've got 5 volts, so that will switch the sensor on. Okay, and then the third wire will be a signal. Okay, now the signal wire will be in reference to the actual throttle position sensor. So what I'm saying to you is it will have so where we've got, for example, we've got a situation here where it is the throttle is completely closed. It will have a figure. As we sweep through, and every time it moves, there will be a value that will change. Okay, and there will obviously be a value for here, which is the throttle is completely open. All right. So what we can do is we can measure this with a multimeter. Okay, so it's going to be pretty difficult to do, but I'll show you anyway. So what I'm going to look to do is, if I'm looking at my multimeter, okay, this is not mine. This is my father-in-law's, and he's kindly donated it to the cause. Is I'm going to be looking at ohms. Okay, all right. So yeah, that's what we're sort of going to need to put it to. Okay, so if I don't know if I'll leave that there for a sec. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, we know what ground is. Okay, so that's the top pin. And I'm going to do the one at the bottom of this triangle of pins. Okay. And I'm just going to put the red terminal towards that. Okay, and it should give me a figure of some sort. Right, so if I just get this set, okay, so it's, what is it saying? It's saying that the figure is 1.087, and that's, yeah, 186, 187. So it will, because I'm moving slightly, it will change. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is, at the same time, is I'm going to just sweep. I'm just going to sweep the. Sorry, let me just put this back on here. Get some form of reading. I do apologise. This is extremely difficult to do with one pair of hands. Okay, right. Right, so we've got 1.087. It may change to 6 or whatever, right? Not massively concerned about that. But when I sweep this, okay, if that figure changes considerably, I know that whatever that pin is at the bottom left is going to be my signal. Okay, because like I said, there's going to be a variance, right? There's going to be a figure associated with each position of this throttle bike carbs. If it stays consistent, and let's say it goes to, I don't know, 1.84332, then I know it's pretty stable, and I know that then that is then the 5 volts. Okay, so let's go and have a look and see what this thing does. Okay, right. So as you can see, by me sweeping this the throttle, right, there's a dramatic change in those figures. Okay. Okay, so it goes to the best part of 4. Yeah, 3.98. Yeah. I let it go. It goes to 1, back to 109. That's what it sort of where it was before. Yeah. Okay, so if you can see that, right, that is telling me that this wire at the bottom here is that 5 volt signal wire, which is the white wire. Okay, and this one now, so if I put this back on ground, which I believe is ground, okay, and this now gives a different figure, but the figure is 4.446. Now if I sweep this and that stays consistent, it may change to maybe 4.445, right? But if it stays relatively consistent, I know that that other pin is 5 volts. We know that anyway, right? Because we know ground is black, and we know that the white wire is our signal wire. Okay, so this one is got to be the 5 volts, which is going to stay consistent, just like ground. Okay, the only one that's going to have a variance is the signal wire, and we already worked that one out. But let's just check this anyway. Okay, and as you can see, that's fully open. Yeah, very little change. Yeah, in fact, it's actually gone back to where it was before. Oops, sorry. Okay, so 4.446. Right, I can sweep it all the way to full. Nothing. Yeah, very little change. So we now know that the other wire, which is the blue wire, is the 5 volt reference. So think about it. You've got a ground plus 5 volts, which switches your sensor on, and then the signal wire is actually what's happening on the actual throttle. Okay, so if we go back to the throttle, the signal wire, sorry. Yeah, you can see just by sweeping through, when we move, and you can see it actually on there's a range there. Yeah, and that's moving as I'm moving the throttle, so we definitely know that is a signal. So that's the way to test it. So the next thing now will be to fire up the ECU. Okay, get it to a battery, hooked up to the laptop, and we'll calibrate this sensor, so we know what's what, and wire it up to the ECU. But the ECU needs to calibrate, and the way that it will normally do it is it will say, right, what's the record a position of it fully closed, record the position of 100% throttle, which would be that. Okay, and then it sort of works out what the range is, and it does what it needs to do. Okay, so that will be the next one. So but you won't have to wait for that. I will record that and do that for you guys now, and yeah, you'll see that in a second. Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Next part of the of this, trying to get the ST170 working. Okay, so we've now set up the ECU with the bike carbs, and we've got it hooked up to the laptop and the software. Okay, so like I've mentioned, we're running an ME100. This is the Gen 1. If you was to go to Motorsport Electronics and buy one, you'll get, you're more than likely that there is a, well, I know that there is a Generation 2. I don't think there's an awful lot between them. You know, it's a relatively straightforward setup, along with the Nodis sort of products as well. Ignition only. When I bought this is about 3 years ago. I bought this in COVID times, and yeah, it came with a loom as well, pre-wired loom. Now the loom is based on, it's the same loom for what's called an ME221, which is basically the same ECU, but has not only ignition but can worry about fueling and all the rest of it, and it is for fuel injection. Okay, so because it's one loom fits all, you've got your injector wire in there, and I think the idea is that you may start with an ME100, and then if you move to fuel injection, you've already got the loom. You can sort of upgrade this and away you go, kind of thing. All right, so yeah, we've got it all hooked up to a battery. Please note, it shouldn't be done like this. I'm literally just doing this to get it up and running quickly. That should be fused and done correctly, so please don't do this at home. And some other wiring that I've done is on the coil pack. Like I said, we're going to get the rev counter working on this as well for a Mk1 Escort. So I've put in the additional loom wires there, which in theory will put the rev counter in the loop, so we can get that up and running and show that running correctly. Okay, all right. So back to the carbs. Obviously, last video we worked out what was happening with these wires, identifying which wire done what, and we worked out that black was the ground. Like I said, I've never known any sort of setup where the black wire isn't ground. We know that the white wire is the signal wire, and the blue wire is the 5-volt reference. Okay, and that corresponds to the wiring on the ECU. So you've got black is ground, you've got purple will be the plus 5 volts, and the pink wire is going to be the signal wire. Okay, right, so that's all connected up. And this is now sort of going to the to this system. This system is called Mighty. It's the one that Motorsport Electronics supply. One of the good things that I do like about this is there is a lot of stuff. There is a lot of parameters to change. I'm certainly no expert in this stuff. I'll I will admit that, but I've been able to get this thing up and running pretty straightforward. And one of the nice things that it does is when you have base maps, instead of going to a company and saying, look, can you supply me with a base map, they're automatically supplied on here through the web, kind of thing. So it's all automatic. I've been able to sort of get a base map for an ST170 on bike carbs loaded onto the system, and then the next thing really now that I want to do is just calibrate that throttle position sensor for those carbs, and it seems to be fairly straightforward. So let's have a look. So here we are, we've got a menu saying throttle calibration. Okay, and like I was saying in the last video, it's, you know, it starts off with close the throttle and press next. Well, yeah, they're closed, so we can go ahead and press next on that one. And then open the throttle fully and press next. Okay, so we can do that. So okay, so that's fully open there now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my other finger just to try and click next. And it seems to like that. And it says, right, press finish to calibrate the TPS HRT. Okay. So finish. And that's done. Okay. We'll save that file. Okay. When messing with this before, I've had a couple before. So what I'll do is we'll overwrite that one, and it's the if we say the 15th of the 12th. Save that. Okay, and that's it. Now what we're looking at here is this primary load. Okay, I mean there's some other bits there about RPM. Obviously there's not going to be anything there. Coolant temperature, intake air temperature, not interested in. Battery, yeah, I suppose we are, but that looks healthy. That's not too bad. Ignition and advance angle final, not really concerned about that. If I'm being honest, I don't know what it is. So yeah, I'm not going to mess around. The one that I'm probably concerned about at this moment in time is primary load. So considering that we've calibrated the TPS on those, as soon as we open it up, obviously that changes. Yeah, take it right to the end, and it's 100% and 0. Okay, so that's that taken care of. Right, the next video then will be setting this up on the ignition switch panel that the one that I bought off eBay. So let's get this done properly. It needs to be really fused, and it needs to be on a relay as well. You know, that does not suffice. That can't suffice. That's definitely not sufficient for what we need to do. And I need to sort of wire in the fuel pump, and there's just going to be a few other bits and pieces, and then it's going to be at the point then where we sort of hook everything together, you know, and then try and get this engine started. Once the engine's started, we should have the rev counter working as well. Okay, so that will be in the next video. So that will be out very soon. Okay, so yeah, thank you for watching, and yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Thank you.